just these few short scriptures, that I have established that there are three different heavens, three different levels that do exist. Now the problem is, one, with flat earthers will fail to tell you that the Hebrew word for heaven is Shamayim, Old Testament 8064, is the one word used for all three heavens. So this is a pattern that can be typical and can trip us up if we're not aware of all of the scriptures pertaining to the same topic or subject. In doing this, we can see, even in Genesis 1 account of creation, that all three heavens and firmaments are being described in the initial creation story. Lack of understanding the three-level heavens is what leads the flat earthers' belief that of what would seem very logical, actually, if there was only one heaven with one firmament. So in their defense, it may not seem so outrageous as most of us might think. True Bible cosmology, however, tells us that there are three different realms with three different firmaments separating them from one another. Some well-meaning promoters of the flat earth, never having the proper education of biblical teaching, would not know this and are, to an extent, innocently or ignorantly teaching a wrong concept. Others, and many of the well-produced documentaries on the flat earth, know better and are the snakes and deceivers who hold back the understanding because they want you to believe the foolishness with only a limited knowledge of the scriptures and a twisting of them.
Okay, so I'm putting out a response to Jim Wilhelmsen and his video that he just put out on the flat earth. It's over an hour long. Not because I want to single him out and make it some sort of petty thing. I'm not trying to attack him personally. I have a lot of respect for him as a prophecy teacher and a researcher, and I've been actually following his material for many years now. And so when I saw him come out with this video, I was, of course, wanted to check it out right away. And I just feel led to just respond to a few basic points from his video, not because I'm just trying to single him out, but rather because I think it really does serve as like just a perfect illustration of some very key points that I think are honestly points of real major misunderstanding across the board by a number of people, and especially within the Bible prophecy, arena. And so I think this is just kind of a perfect vehicle to hit on a lot of issues that have been kind of nagging at me ever since I started looking into this, to be honest. And so here we go. In that first section, he starts off by talking about how one of the major problems with flat earthers is that he basically makes the accusation that they are ignorant about the fact that the Bible describes three, the first, second, and third heavens, and that this flat earth cosmology is just basically this sort of simplistic, completely materialistic idea of, the Truman Show dome, with, the heavens just being one heavens of whatever's inside the dome, and then like that there's one firmament in the one heaven. And so he spends a lot of time attacking this and contrasting that to the idea of the conventional prophecy, or the conventional cosmology of the 20th century for most Bible scholars has been this idea that the first heaven is the atmosphere, the second heaven is outer space, and that the third heaven is heaven, where the highest heaven where God lives, or at least a higher heaven than just even outer space. And this is a really, really important point that I feel like just has to be hammered home, because what is being, and this amazes me, because what is not being acknowledged is the fact that in this cosmology, you are going above and beyond conventional quote-unquote science that NASA and the quote scientific community asserts is the universe, okay? And as such, okay, it is still an enclosed cosmology, and that is the whole point, is that no matter how you want to slice it, no matter how you want to, try and expand or contract or describe things, according to the Bible, the creation is finite. The Creator is infinite. So even if you want to think of this massive universe with billions of light years across, there is an edge to it, right? And this really is counter to everything that the NASA scientists and the the physicists and all the atheistic cosmologists are going to tell you, and that are going to insist is true from their abstract mathematical calculations, right? Because to them, the universe essentially is infinite. There's nothing to say that it's not, that it can expand forever. And of course, there's those who will say that at some point it's going to come back, it's going to start contracting and implode back in on itself or whatever. But the point is that what Wilhelmsen is really revealing here is, I think, something that is shared by a lot of Bible scholars and prophecy teachers and such, who basically think that the flat Earth model does not incorporate this hyperdimensional aspect to cosmology to it, when in fact it is nothing could be further from the truth. And this is what has just aggravated me to no end ever since the very beginning, when I got into this research and I heard the first thing I listened to after Mark Sargent was Rob Skiba talking to Josh Peck. And they talked for several hours about the flat Earth and everything. And I thought for sure that, this is going to be such a great conversation, because Josh Peck is all about the quantum physics and hyperdimensions and all the stuff that I've been really getting interested in. And I thought, these two topics just have there's so much overlap, and they're I just thought it was going to be this amazing conversation, and they didn't even get into that. And Josh Peck did not even seem to be able to see that within the enclosed cosmology, even this ancient Hebrew cosmology that we've seen, this picture of basically the bubble with the flat Earth in the middle, that doesn't go away. If anything, it becomes even more pronounced and even more central to all of it. And this is a thing that is really, really what it boils down to, is that in this video by Wilhelmsen himself, he actually spends a lot of time openly telling you that his own previously published theories on prophecy interpretation, and he talks about this one with, that he's put out for the Prophecy Club, and dealing with the tribe of Dan and the three frogs and everything, that it absolutely requires outer space and space exploration as part of the narrative, part of the explanation. And he talks about colleagues such as David Flynn and all these other guys that we're all well aware of. And this is what I think is a real stumbling block to a lot of guys like this, because they've spent so many years digging into things like, there's some kind of secret space program, and that there's the UFO deception and the hyperdimensionality and wormholes and all these things, which he talks about here, and how it's almost as if they think that all this research, like to even consider flat Earth, that they have to just throw the baby out with the bathwater, because he himself will tell you that, like, his whole interpretation of all these things with dimensions is all hinges around gravitational theory. And so that's the lens that he is, he's taken something from conventional science, but then taking it far beyond what conventional science says. But then we'll turn around and talk about people who the fact that we were measuring curvature and not able to detect curvature, that's pseudoscience. And yet you're talking about CERN. You can speculate about CERN and things on Mars and secret space programs and all these other things that not to mention the fact that he's talking about the Book of Enoch, and there's a lot of people out there that have a hard time with the Book of Enoch, but Jim Wilhelmsen is not one of them. And so this is just what astounds me, because even in this video he's quoting from Enoch, but then saying that it completely describes gravity and outer space and the belt of the gravitational system, while completely ignoring that, there's an entire chapter on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, and it just plainly equates angels and stars and the celestial bodies, and it just you go on and on and on. But it's like, if you can't really get to that point where you're willing to go, hey, I have years of research, I have years of material that is invested that incorporates the paradigm of space, and this is what because really it does not require guys like Jim Wilhelmsen, Ellie Marzulli, Stan Deyo, David Flynn, all these guys that were at that UFO conference that he mentions, all these guys have done so much amazing research on the UFO deception and the occult and all these connections that to disregard space as to disregard the moon to say that the moon landings were fake or that all the ISS and these things does not render all that research as being worthless. If anything, it just makes it make that much more sense because we're talking about the spiritual realm. That's why all these occultists got into rocketry. And he even says in his video that he believes that, the space program got into the second heaven and even the third heaven. And when I get to that point, and when I hear this kind of thing being said, it's just that is the point where I just honestly start to feel a little bit depressed, because I feel like this is the side, because this is the area where somehow, as Christians who are seriously taking a look at flat Earth, are still failing and still not able to get so many of these people on board and see how much it just absolutely, if anything, it validates the work of guys like Wilhelmsen and so many others so much, and yet some of those guys are the most adamantly opposed to it, because they spent years trying to synthesize their theories and their research with certain aspects of what is coming out of Freemasonic organizations like NASA, and trying to walk this thin line. And it's a lot of humble pie for some people to have to eat. And I can't say I know what it's like to be faced with that kind of pressure. I've put up videos for less than a year, and I've speculated about a number of things, but yeah, I could be wrong about any number of them. And I don't know what it's like to have written books and done conferences and had my own podcast and be so invested in certain things to where you just it's easy to talk about being willing to examine one's own work. When I've never been on that kind of a level. But so I say all this with a soberness, because for me that it really is, it's the broader question of cosmology, which is central to it all. And we spend so much time just yammering about a flat Earth, so that guys like Wilhelmsen, who should honestly be at the forefront of this research. He should, this is a guy who's been exploring Hollow Earth for, why is Hollow Earth not, as if that's not completely contrary to everything that modern science tells you about the globe and about how all of science works and gravity. Do you think the Hollow Earth doesn't fly in the face of gravitational theory just as much? I mean, come on. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand. But if anything, I feel like this just compels me to get more serious about explaining just how compelling the idea of hyperdimensional cosmology within the firmament, that is, we're not just talking about some metal dome over our heads that with a manhole in the top that you pop out and get to God. That we're talking about dimensional realities, spiritual realms that are somehow within an enclosed system. And you can exactly where the lines are between allegory and literalism. There's a lot of finer points that are still up for debate. I don't have some hard set theory. I just think the fact that so many Christians they immediately gravitate to the most caricaturized idea and caricaturized model, and then just pick it apart and pick apart straw man ideas, is just so aggravating. So I'm pretty frustrated. I would have left a comment on Wilhelmsen's video. If he's listening to this, I hope he knows that I'm not. I see him as a brother. I see him as somebody that I'd love to sit and have a conversation with. But there, comments were not open on the video, so hopefully some good comes of this.
Us that there are three different realms with three different firmaments separating them from one another. Some well-meaning promoters of the flat Earth never having the proper education of biblical teaching would not know this and are, to an extent, innocently or ignorantly teaching a wrong concept. Other three heavens. So this is a pattern that can be typical and can trip us up if we're not aware of all of the scriptures pertaining to the same topic or subject. In doing this, we can see, even in Genesis 1 account of creation, that all three heavens and firmaments are being described in the initial creation story. I hope in just these few short scriptures that I have established that there are three different heavens, three different levels that do exist. Now the problem is, one, with flat earthers will fail to tell you that the Hebrew word for heaven is Shamayim, Old Testament 80:64, is the one word used for all of understanding the three-level heavens is what leads the flat earthers' belief that of what would seem very logical, actually, if there was only one heaven with one firmament. So in their defense, it may not seem so outrageous as most of us might think. True Bible cosmology, however, tells